we're having this conversation is because we've had certain experiences in our early life, I'm sure. We've heard about this topic from other people, we've been influenced, and then, we've been floating around on a breeze, and we've met and we've come together, and we felt like we've decided to talk about this topic of free will versus determinism, whereas really, if you put it into a supercomputer and put in the billion factors for each of us, and then we come together at this moment at 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning, then if you introduce these same factors to any human animal, they will come to the same decision.
Whenever you want.
This is the Dawn edition. Welcome to the three-headed Hydra. 7 a.m. in Rome, 8 a.m. in the Horsham district. And this is a toughie. So, the topic is, do we actually have control over our own actions? Is there any such thing as free will? Or determinism, a more appropriate way to see things? And I'd just like to start with a quote from Forrest Gump. I don't know if Mama was right, or if it's Lieutenant Dan. I don't know if we each have a destiny, or if we're just floating around accidental like on a breeze. But I think maybe it's both. So Lieutenant Dan would be more into free will, I suppose. So free will, the idea that we make our own decisions. We have agency over our own actions. Whereas Forrest Gump's mama sounds like she's more deterministic in that our actions are just a result of everything that came before it. Everything genetic and everything environmental goes into some sort of supercomputer and comes out in the next thing that you do or the next thing that you say.
Algorithm.
Don't go into that then. So Sal, this is a topic that you introduced, that you proposed.
Hey, I just proposed it. Don't make me responsible for the topic.
Yeah, sorry. That's 17 minutes left. Go on, Sal.
Oh God.
What are your thoughts?
Well, when I thoroughly researched the topic, and by thoroughly researched I mean I watched some YouTube videos. What I came up with, or what I found out, is basically you can make several arguments for or against determinism on several levels. So you could make a physical argument saying that some determinists, for example Einstein, believed that the universe is like a clockwork that has already determined all the moments in the future. So if you had a serial killer, he basically was just acting up on something that was already preordained for him. But you could also make a biological argument. Because some people say that you cannot actually measure determinism by its small particles, because little particles don't have free will, but we do. So you have to get basically out of this very small world and try to find something in a biological world. But then you could also make a neurological argument, like this famous experiment with Benjamin Libet, not sure how you pronounce it. But he made this kind of...
I did French at university. I think you'll find it.
Libet. The measurements showed that the brain was already given an answer before you knew that you were even acting up on the world. So yeah, then there's also other philosophical arguments you could make against or for determinism, or religious arguments. So that's a whole different area.
Mm-hmm.
That's my minute.
What are you saying, Dan?
Wow. I reckon Sal's watched more YouTube videos than me. Free will seems to be one of these subjects that comes up in the podcast circle. It seems to be something that, if you're in the intellectual kind of group of people of podcasts that I listen to, you've got to have an opinion on free will. It's like one of those. Actually, some of the less intellectual guys, I've seen them bring it up as a question, and it doesn't fit into the conversation very well. What do you think about free will? It's like, when there's nothing else to say, bring up the free will thing, you know?
Is that your go-to question at a date? So, yeah, you do. What do you think about free will then? You got an opinion?
What's that? What's free will?
So actually,
I love free willing.
You didn't decide to go on this date. It was already decided for you by the ocean of genetic and environmental factors that led up to this moment. So So, how do you feel about that?
No, so I say that to say that I haven't really made my mind up on it. I haven't done enough thinking about it to decide whether it's a thing. But where it, the first place it takes me is wondering where it really fits into the world and what does it matter whether free will is true or not. And I suppose the first answer to that would be, what do you do about someone who does something wrong, and whether it was their fault or not, and where do you punish? What would you do? Punish someone for doing something wrong?
Absolutely.
Would you bring you to I don't know, say you put someone into prison for stealing something and you decide whether their actions was determinism or free will, down to determinism or free will. I mean, either way, the prison is meant to it's not meant to be a punishment as such.
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation. So it's meant to change your mind. So I suppose they're trying to repair whatever damage has been done.
Well, that's it, mate.
Change your mind.
That's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? Because otherwise it just becomes a philosophical, excuse the phrase, mental masturbation. That's what it is sometimes. But then you think, okay, well, actually it does have an effect in the real world, because if somebody does something, how are you going to punish them or rehabilitate them? That depends on whether you believe, or society believes, that they had free will, they had complete agency over their actions, in which case punish, or the action was deterministic, it was the result of their life so far, their genetics, and they didn't actually have control in that moment of doing the wrong thing, in which case you'd take a more rehabilitative route. So it does have real consequences in society.
Right.
I just think that the argument, because I'm quite uneasy with this, because I like to think that I'm my own person and I make my own decisions. No, that's my shtick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very defensive and strong-willed about my own independence. But really, the arguments, if you want to be philosophically coherent, are that you can't have complete free will. You just can't have complete free will, because you have these genes and you have these experiences, neither of which you controlled. We like to think that we authored our own life. We didn't. We are the effect of everything which has gone on in every single moment up to this point. So the words that I'm about to say are the effect of the language that I've used, the thoughts that I've had, the influences that I've had, the genetics that I started with. And that is quite a disempowering thought when you start, but that's
But then the counter argument is that you're not closed and limited by those past experiences, because you're still open to new experiences.
Absolutely.
So if now I show you a video clip of Britney Spears unexpectedly, all of a sudden you get new input and you react to that. You might not have wanted to see that Britney Spears video clip. However, you will react and adapt to that and use the information to change again.
Yeah.
So
I think that's important, because I was thinking about it, because we've had a couple of weeks to sit on this topic actually.
By the way, I want to clarify, I have no Britney Spears video clips or any music in my house, so just to...
So Sal's also available for as a wedding singer, so he does a lot of Britney Spears impersonations. Back to the topic. Hashtag. Sal, stop it! You're taking up 20 minutes with your advertising. So
I'm determined.
It's not the same thing as determinism. It's an adjective. Being determined. What was I going to say? Completely lost it.
Okay, so you give me another kind of practical real life situation in which this subject's relevant, and that's how you treat other people. So if someone was doing wrong, if you were inclined, if you were a determined, would you say you're a determinist or a free willer?
Go on, we'll coin it.
Yeah, a determinist or a free willer. That might decide how you treat
Free Willy.
Whether you approach it with compassion. So if you thought that it was their own free will making these bad decisions, you might be angry at them. Whereas if you thought that their outcome was governed by the universe, or however you want to put it, then you might treat it with a bit more compassion and not blame them as such, which can be helpful when you're dealing with people day to day. It's another practical.
That is, I'd have to look back on our scores on the Big 5 personality test on compassion. But that's where it lies, right? So if you're cycling along and somebody shouts out the window at you, you could think you could think really quickly, you chose to just shout out the window at me. Screw you, and I'm going to shout back and I'm going to get you. Or you could think, oh, well, that's just a result of your upbringing. Maybe you were taught to react to negative emotion like that. That's a result of your day. Again, this person in the car, have a lot of things which are uncontrollable that led to that moment, and then I'm now the recipient of that frustration. So
maybe your mum used to shout out the window at people.
Yeah, and look at you now, repeating the same story. But what I was going to say as well, before we got lost in Sal's wedding singer act, hashtag the waistcoats, is that determinism is not the same as destiny. Because I was thinking about this, I was like, man, okay, I can argue for determinism, but I'm not having any of this destiny that somebody's written my story already. I'm not having that. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same because destiny dictates that actually there's a powerful being behind the controls, which gets into a lot of religions. Whereas determinism is saying, like Forrest Gump said, we're all sort of floating around on a breeze. Things collide with each other in the breeze, and do change each other. And like you say, new materials, new impetuses will change you in the future as well. Which is, to go back to the prison thing, that's what prison for me should be for, to rehabilitate. They should use that time to actually flood people with more positive impetuses and make the prison time more specific for their needs in terms of rewiring their neurology. Because, it's like, I heard a Sam Harris argument, it's like punishing an animal for something that is done wrong. We are just animals at the end of the day, right? Complicated animals, but we're animals.
You and me, baby.
Nothing but mammals. So?
Let's do on the Discovery Channel.
There was this hashtag the waistcoats. They play Britney Spears and the Bloodhound Gang.
No, they don't.
Sweat, baby, sweat.
But the point being that I keep losing the point.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, James. This is where the mental masturbation kicks in, because you're saying that you'd be one way about something. The universe would have you one way about something, but your free will could change the direction of that. Whereas I think where the mental masturbation comes in is that, look, even if you thought about these things in your head, the conclusion that you arrive at was ultimately determined by the universe anyway. It doesn't matter how much thinking you did about it. Do you see what I mean?
But the thinking that you did,
yeah,
is determined by your environment and the billions of factors.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, the universe had you arrive at that conclusion, even if you arrived at it yourself. And that's where the trickiness comes in. It's like when I was just thinking about saying that, it made me think of eeny, meeny, miny, moe, where you have three options and you eeny, meeny, miny, moe it, and you can't quickly work out which one you're going to end up at. Whereas really, I'm sure if you knew the number, if you did it a few times, you know where you were going to end up at. But it's a bit like that, isn't it? You're going to do a bit of thinking about it, but ultimately you're going to arrive at that conclusion anyway. That's what a deterministic view would.
Yeah, sorry, that's the 728 just flying into Champino, everybody. So thanks for that.
Thank God. Again.
But yeah, I like I say, I'm quite uneasy with this topic because I like to feel that I am in control of my own ship. I'm the captain of my own ship, but really I'm not. I'm even the captain of this metaphorical ship would be controlled by millions of other factors which are out of his control. So,
and the feeling that you have, a lot of scientists say that it's just a useful illusion that evolution has created for us to give us the sense of free will. And I think, though, you can have certain influences that are non-deterministic, though they will certainly influence you, but they will not determine your outcome. So I think you can have both. You can have both free will but you obviously also have to take account of the things that influence your biological mass, let's say, and the choices you make. But it's not the same as saying that it's all predetermined. You know what I mean?
Not predetermined.
It's an influence. It's not a rules set of rules that determine your behavior in the future.
Yeah, not a set of rules. Like think about the Forrest Gump quote again. We're just floating around.
And you did a perfect job there with your impersonation, by the way.
Just
want to point
I do impersonations as well for a small fee. But the most convincing argument that I've heard is from a friend of mine, a teaching friend called Richard Lacey. I think he did a degree in philosophy and literature, so he knows stuff. He knows more than us, basically. And he said,
somebody competent.
Either your decisions were caused, in which case they just follow from each other in a deterministic way, like any other calculating machine, or they're uncaused, in which case they are random. Even if there is a magical ghost behind your meat brain like a puppet master, that ghost faces the same problem. Either its decisions are caused or uncaused, so you go back to the same problem again and again. So you have determinism or randomness. There's no space for free will except in the narrative that we tell ourselves that, oh, I'm the captain of my ship. I'm going to make this next decision.
Right.
So, well, just because you're at the controls of your own brain, or you think you are, it doesn't really mean that you are actually in charge.
But I think I would say this is my this is my thought as it stands. Right, this is my position on it as it stands right now. But I'm more than open to being told otherwise. I'd say you've got, say, out of 10 decisions in your life, one of them is ultimately that you think all 10 are down to you, but probably 9 of them are determined by prior factors. But that last one that you'd be on the fence about maybe is down to you. Does that make sense? There'd be some stuff that you're not so deep rooted in that your decision is preset. There is some things where it's down to your preference.
But then when you say it's down to you, what goes into the decision and what is you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
What is you if it's not a result of everything that you've lived through up to this point?
Mm-hmm.
I have the same thing. I would love to have a coherent philosophical position that I am in charge of my own life. But the fact is that I'm not.
But then you still have to think about these things. You can't just blow around the world like a leaf in the wind, can you? For some reason, you still have to decide that you're. I suppose maybe to once you've chosen the decisions, things like that can push you through hard times. I don't know.
I think the illusion is just so strong, the biological illusion, if it's an illusion, that we have free will, that it's not that you decide or not, don't decide. You just feel like you're in charge whether or not you are. I think that's the end of it.
Using my 10 decision kind of
okay.
framework of thinking, you think hard about those 10 decisions. I'm not saying that you don't think about 9 of them, but one of them you think about. You think hard about all of them, but all of them that you think hard about, only one of them really matters because you'd already be swayed either way. But on one of those things, you sort of maybe do have, not the final say, but I'm saying it's still helpful to think about these things. You can't just float around.
No, absolutely. You are thinking about them, but...
And this is almost like you can cross over to religion here, because when people say God's plan and things like this is ultimately what they're talking about, isn't it? So you've got to try and you've got to put your effort into doing the right thing. And then ultimately you have to let go, otherwise it can cripple you. There is a helpful point where to think that free will is doing something. It's not just a waste of time, is what I'm trying to say.
No, but determinism is not saying that your life is useless, so just, eat some Cheetos and play video games, because everything's going to happen as it would anyway. Every thought that you have, even this 10th decision that you said then, you say, I'm going to think really hard about this. What are your thoughts about this 10th decision? They're a result of all of the cognitive, emotional, psychological tools that you've built up genetically and environmentally up to that point.
Sure.
There's also the illusion of you, which can go into another.
Yeah,
podcast.
okay.
So the mere fact of thinking about these 10 goals that you were talking about, even that already is predetermined, that you even had the idea to think about these things.
You have to separate predetermined from destiny. Like, the fact that we're having this conversation is because we've had certain experiences in our early life, I'm sure. We've heard about this topic from other people, we've been influenced, and then, we've been floating around on a breeze, and we've met and we've come together, and we felt like we've decided to talk about this topic of free will versus determinism, whereas really, if you put it into a supercomputer and put in the billion factors for each of us, and then we come together at this moment at 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning, then if you introduce these same factors to any human animal, they will come to the same decision.
By the way, it's Tuesday morning.
But yeah, so I'm saying the I don't know. I'm just trying to think of why it would be useful to think you are a free willer rather than a determinismer. Because
why shouldn't we take this for another episode to a conclusion about the moral implications? Because I think we hit the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, and that's another good point, because Sal's German upbringing has meant that in this moment he's extremely precise about the time. So he's seen the 20 minutes roll over. It's turned an alarm bell off, and he's called an end to the podcast. So let's talk about it again another day.
Okay, man.
That's an interesting one, though, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe. Peace.
Make your own decision on.
Make your own decision and subscribe.
Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the 3 of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh, and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.